Okay, so this is a video that's dedicated to telling you guys about why I decided to cancel my Vanguard pre-order. And I'm going to give you a couple of points, a couple of pointers, and tell you guys basically why I canceled it, like I just said, and whether or not I think you guys should reconsider your pre-order. So, starting off, there's a couple of big problems I want to get out of the way. So, first things first, if you guys haven't seen the reveals, be sure to go check those out. I believe they're on the YouTube channel as well as on Call of Duty's Instagram page and Twitter page, so be sure to go check them out if you haven't already. Now, talking about the campaign reveal looks pretty unappealing. It's the same bullcrap with the World War II stuff. You play as like an American or like an allied hero, American, British, French. You get the gist. You capture some big points along the bridge as you move into France and across Germany. And then there's really no big turning points in the campaign. I mean, at least in my opinion, I don't think there are. I mean, in Call of Duty World War II, it's the same plot as Saving Private Ryan. That's basically what they had going for the campaign. And don't get me wrong, I actually didn't mind the campaign, but the fact that they literally didn't have the creativity, that they had to pull the story for a campaign from one of the greatest Steven Spielberg movies ever, that just shows that Sledgehammer Games really put no effort into polishing this game and making sure that it's ready come November 5th. And, I mean, going back to the turning point issue, like the fact that there's no really like interesting parts, like, you know, in Cold War where they found out Bell actually works for Perseus instead of actually working for the Americans. He works for the USSR. Or in Modern Warfare 2019, that was a super interesting campaign where we found out Hadir actually works for the terrorists instead of actually being on Farah's side and working with Captain Price, Sergeant Garrick, and Nikolai. And if there was a big protagonist change, I guess it would be okay. But overall, what I mean to say is I guess I'm not very impressed by what Sledgehammer has to offer with the campaign. They may prove me wrong. They may actually bring out a really freaking good campaign. And if they do, I may have to reconsider. But for right now, the campaign is an absolute no. And moving on to my second point, multiplayer is basically a reskin of Modern Warfare. Like I said in my previous videos, it has the exact same engine. It runs the IW8 engine, which the engine, don't get me wrong, it's a phenomenal engine. One of the best engines built for a first-person shooter, in my opinion. But the thing is, it's a World War II reskin, so it's basically like you mixed up Call of Duty World War II, just took the gameplay and then slapped it onto the mechanics of Modern Warfare, and that's what you get with Vanguard. I mean, obviously, you know, the guns are different, but I'll get to that in a second. The maps are okay. The overall poor lines of sight lead to prominent camping issues and a lack of fun, proper gunfight. I mean, the maps in the beta, if you haven't played the beta, there were 4 maps. I mean, I would rather they've come out with 3 or even 2 maps and make the maps much more polished and much more playable as opposed to bringing out 4 maps and then having not very good quality. That's what they really did well with in World War II. They came out with 9 maps at launch, I believe. Usually a Call of Duty comes out with like 12 or maybe even 13. But quality over quantity is the key here. Make sure you bring out quality maps first and quality gameplay first before increasing the quantity. And if they master that before launch, again, I may reconsider, but right now it's not very good. And moving on to my next point, this is by far the biggest problem that we've had in Call of Duty for the past couple of years. I believe since Modern Warfare 2019, skill-based matchmaking. If you don't know what that is, it basically pits you against other players in Call of Duty lobbies based on your skills. So if you're, say, an average like 1.5 KD player, it'll pit you against people that are like that. It doesn't take their overall KD, it takes it so that, like, based on their skill from the past few games. So let's say you're actually like a really good player, like you're in a Call of Duty league and you're one of the best players in the world, but you've been playing against some like the much better players. Again, it takes into account the past few games. So if you want to like go down and play easier level players so that you can record content and get like nukes and stuff like that, what you can do is something called reverse boosting, which is basically intentionally doing bad in like the higher level games so that it brings you down like to play with the lower level players, and that helps you do better. I've experienced some reverse boosting against me, but overall I haven't really had a problem with it. I mean, no matter what, I consider myself like a pretty solid player. Overall, it leads to pretty poor matchmaking, And I mean, this could be an even bigger problem with like the cheating. I mean, obviously they've implemented an A cheat system built from the ground up on PC. I believe it's called Ricochet. They actually announced it earlier today. But I mean, are they really gonna like give a crap about it? I mean, there's gonna be some sort of like loopholes that PC players and console players can figure out so that they can mod the game, they can cheat, they can bring in like aimbot, like super fast trigger fingers, all that bullcrap. And I don't know if Sledgehammer is really gonna fix this game at launch. Overall, like I said, the game seems very, very, very unpolished compared to Battlefield 2042 and even Modern Warfare 2019, which was released almost 2 years ago, mind you. And going back to my point about Battlefield 2042, I played the beta. Again, I'm one of the biggest Call of Duty fans. You know, I've been playing it since like the olden days. And Battlefield 2042, while it's slow, obviously Call of Duty is made for high-paced gameplay, fast-paced gameplay. Battlefield 2042 is going more for a ground war feel, so it feels like you're fighting in realistic gunfights and stuff like that. The tactics and the mechanics are very similar to Call of Duty, but the ground, like the fact that you can fly up in the air, you can like drive vehicles around, it feels a lot like a Battlefield game, and that's what I really like about it. And I think that despite the bugs and despite all like the issues that they've had in the beta, I think that EA is very promising, and I think that they have a chance to redeem themselves after a very poor Battlefield 5 back in 2018, I believe. And another big problem is Sledgehammer Games picked a World War II themed game for the second time in a row, and that is pretty problematic because it just shows the lack of creativity, as I mentioned before, which is something that Battlefield has really excelled at in the beta. World War II does make for some cool gunfights, but there's not as much malleability and there's not as much flexibility with updates. So if you come out with like a DLC weapon, for example, in Vanguard, you'd have to actually make it so that it was somewhat used during World War II. But in Battlefield 2042, it's in the future. It said like in the future about like 20 years. So if you really wanted to, you could have a high rate of fire direct energy assault rifle with a lot of damage. I mean, you can do whatever you want. That just gives that extra flexibility and that extra edge to EA that Sledgehammer lacks. And I mean, without creativity, it just goes to show that they don't really give a shit about making this game. And if they don't give a shit about making the game, then who's going to invest their money into a game where the developers just slap something together and just call it a Call of Duty? Whereas you have another developer that's been working their asses off, working since 2018 to make sure that people have an enjoyable experience, especially considering the last Battlefield wasn't enjoyable at all. That's something that EA's really done well. And hopefully in 2022, with the release of Modern Warfare 2, Infinity Ward really comes out and they just say, hey, Call of Duty still got it, Activision still got it, despite Sledgehammer and Treyarch not delivering. We will definitely deliver. Hopefully they do that next year, but again, that's next year. This year's Call of Duty hasn't even released yet. And obviously, if you guys don't even know, they were actually considering not even releasing a Call of Duty this year because there were so many internal problems between Activision and Sledgehammer and who was going to develop a game. And moving on to my next point, zombies. I cannot even fathom how they ruined one of the greatest game modes in a video game of all time. I mean, zombies was once a game mode where you had an actual storyline, you had great guns, great weapons, you could play with friends, you could play for hours together and not even get bored of it. The last time the last time a zombies game was ever good was in Black Ops 3. After that, Zombies in Spaceland was like, I played it once at a friend's house. I wasn't really intrigued by it. Then World War II Zombies mode came out. I mean, that was a total hot mess. And then you got, obviously, Black Ops 4 Zombies that came out in 2018. I mean, they did end the storyline in a somewhat nice way. But the fact that they had budget cuts kind of ruined the zombies, especially because one of the most important perks ever, Juggernaut, wasn't even in the game. And then obviously Modern Warfare 2019 didn't have zombies, it had Spec Ops. And then Cold War Zombies last year, I wasn't really a fan of it. It just made it so much easier last year. Like, you didn't have to start off with a pistol. You could just start off with an M4 and you could like BS your way up through like 50 rounds. But in the older like zombies modes, in the older games that Treyarch had to like offer, you had to start off with a pistol and you have to work your way up to like slowly get Pack-a-Punch and, you know, build your like stuffs. You had to actually earn it. But Cold War really kind of ruined that experience, and this year's Zombies is no different. They announced that Treyarch is developing it, but they continue the Dark Ether story from last year, which I don't think it was very good because it doesn't follow a true storyline. I mean, you could literally have Frank Woods playing in Zombies. That doesn't make any sense. Obviously, the four main characters are Eddie, Takeo, Nikolai, and Dempsey, but obviously Treyarch has completely ruined that storyline, and I don't really have any high hopes, even though Treyarch is developing this year's Zombies, and obviously they have the greatest Zombies mode of all time, one of the greatest modes of all time. And it just sucks, man. As a diehard Call of Duty fan who's been buying the game pretty much every year for the past like decade, it just sucks to see one of the greatest video game franchises of all time just kind of like screwing up and just kind of like shedding the bed, if you will. And finally, Battlefield has definitely stepped up their game, as I just said a couple minutes ago. Battlefield 5 was a hot mess. I think we can all agree with that. It was one of the shittiest games they've ever released. I think the next installment in EA's best-selling FPS franchise looks extremely promising despite the bugs, despite the issues. I think they're going to make for one hell of a game that's going to come out later. People are really excited about Battlefield, and they're just like not giving a shit about Call of Duty. And that just, I mean, I can't blame the Call of Duty fanboys. I mean, myself included. I think that Call of Duty this year doesn't have much to offer, and that it's not going to be worth your $75, or if you're playing on PS4, I think it's $60-something or Xbox One or whatever. But that's pretty much what I had to say about why I canceled the Vanguard pre-order. And my opinion is, cancel your pre-order. It's not worth the $75. You're better off spending your money on other games and other stuff, whatever you do. So, yeah, I guess this year is very disappointing for Call of Duty fans, myself included. And that concludes the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to sub, like, and hit the bell icon so you can see more of this kind of stuff. Anyways, this is Sid signing off. Peace out.